My friend's wife, who I thought was also my friend, embarrassed me in front of all of our mutual friends. I'm so embarrassed right now, but I do not think I did anything wrong. Let me explain the situation. I have had this same mutual friend group since I graduated college 3 years ago. It's a group of people I met through my best friend Jenna, female 25, who was my sorority sister in college. Included in the friend group is her older brother M2.29, Joe, and his wife Diana, a female 28. I considered both of them my friends too, but would say I was closer to Joe as he's Jenna's brother. Deanna hosted a birthday dinner for Joe over the weekend. Our mutual friends were there, but so was Jenna and his family. I was happy to get to know some of the people I hadn't met. I know his parents well and caught up well with them too. Deanna and Joe also had a child recently, and I did see him a few times. He's adorable. When we were sitting down after dinner, Deanna freaked me out on me because he yelled at me in front of everyone to stop flirting with her husband, stop touching him, and to not come into her house and be disrespectful. People got quiet after this before my best friends started talking about something else. I left shortly after. I truly don't think I did anything disrespectful throughout them that night. I, of course, talked to the birthday boy a lot. Everyone was. I don't remember touching him too much, but it was close quarters, so I did brush up against him a few times. I did give him a big hug when I saw him and later when I gave him his gift. That is it. I texted Jenna and she said that I should talk to Deanna and Joe about it, but that I should keep distance with him for now because I was supposed to attend their parents' anniversary party, but she told me that wouldn't be a good idea right now. I am a very friendly person, but I respect people's personal boundaries. If anyone had an issue before, they would have mentioned it to me. I have not changed this in the past 3 years since I've met like both Jojo and Yama. I am so embarrassed that she basically accused me of trying to sleep with her husband in front of all other friends and his family. I feel like I can't show my face now. Do you value salvaging your relationship with this woman? If so, I'd give her a call and ask for a brunch or coffee or some girls' outing thing and explain to her that you're really not into her guy. Sorry that you came off that way. How horrible it must have thought, etc., etc. Showing empathy is the best way to get people to soften. Once you reach an understanding, tell her that what she did was really jarring for you and hurt your reputation and ask her to fix it since she's the one that damaged it. She needs to tell her people that she had the wrong idea and clean up her own mess. I know it's a tall order and most won't do this, but this would be, in theory, the proper way to repair the OP. Yes, because if I'm not good with her, then I won't be good with Joe or his family or his close friends. They were looking at me like I had 5 heads after she yelled at me. When I left, his mom said that's for the best. I asked Jana today if she thinks she would apologize. And she said she thinks she OP. Joe hasn't talked to me since and didn't respond to my texts. No one is going to apologize to me and I don't do anything wrong. I feel like I'm an alternate universe right now. No one has ever complained about how I act. OP Jenna all but told me not to attend the party. I really want to go as I do not have family near me and her parents have treated me well. I don't know if I should push that or not. Update October 10th, 2017. Janet and I just FaceTime for the past like 40-ish minutes. She said that she talked to her. She said she talked to her and her brother over the week. This is what her LIL said. She said, I'm always over it, always touching, always flirting with Joe. I'm rude to her, ignoring her. I'm not saying hi. When I go over to their house, I texted Joe late at night, even though he had to a wedding. On his birthday, I went to their house, barely said anything to her, went to see their baby. I hadn't met him yet. Got him all worked up, but had enough time to take a picture for Instagram. And then she had to spend the next 15 minutes calming him down. When she came back out, she saw us in a corner alone, me giving him his gift and hugging him. I touched him other times throughout the night and no one else had that problem. So I did not talk to her at dinner. She was on the opposite end of the table. So of course not. Yet I was joking and flirting with her husband. She said, I am not welcome in her home again. She said her brother said that he's sorry his wife yelled at me because he was the one who she should have been yelling at. Diana asked him multiple times to pull back on her friendship because I was being rude to her and I was always touching him, and he said nothing. He'll now be doing that apparently. No one ever called me out about these things, and I still think that Diana's reading a lot more into everything than there was. I did not purposely ignore her. I always talked to her. I just know Joe better and felt more comfortable with him. She's always been preoccupied with her pregnancy and now their son, so I haven't seen her as much. It's hard to say whether you've been out of blind or not. It is clear you do not feel you have, but I strongly encourage you to see this as a learning experience. When you're friends with a couple, it is good to nurture the relationship with both, and perhaps especially with the female. Women often are not completely comfortable with their husbands being close with female friends that seem to maintain distance with the wives themselves. And the same goes for men not being comfortable with wives being close to men that the husband is not. And well, you may see that as silly, but it is pretty standard in my experience. Knowing that it is to be expected, you don't want to invite this situation. It seemed clear at Amilo she considered her much more of a secondary friend and didn't really try to connect with her. And yeah, the late night texts are somewhat over the line. If she raised this to him to set some boundaries first and he refused or failed to, her bigger issue should be with him than with you. And it's too bad you took the brunt of it. Try to see your role in this only to try to avoid a similar thing from occurring in the future. So past, I don't have too many friends who are married and parents. So it is different than when I hang out with other people that are in our friend groups, late night texts or something I have sent to other people too. I know now I shouldn't do that, but it isn't like I was hitting on him. I was drunk when it's sending some of them. I know now to hide my phones when that happens. I should have maybe tried harder with her with all this, but we were close in the beginning. Since she's gotten pregnant and had her child, she's been busy with all these pregnancy things and taking care of the baby. It's hard to be friends. Drunk texting a married man late at night is sketch. AF not trying to be friends with his wife because it's hard is too. I think her call out was probably justified. Goopy, goopy. I can see why you think that. But to me, he wasn't a married man, but a friend. She isn't the only person I've drunk texted. The list is pretty long and somewhat hilarious. I have tried to be friends with her. She's been busy and not around as often as Joe. I do think she's reading too much into it. I'm closer to Joe than I am to her. That doesn't mean I'm flirting with her husband or trying to get his. Joe seems to think her complaints have some basis in reality. Maybe you are the one not seeing things clearly / in denial. Being 100% honest with yourself, are you attracted to Joe, even if you'd never act on it? Oh, if he's an attractive guy, sure. That doesn't mean I was flirting with him or trying to sleep with him or heavy. Suing for medical expenses after disaster wedding. Relevant background information. My husband has a condition called osteogenesis imperfecta, which makes his bones very fragile and susceptible to fractures. He uses a wheelchair because his bones are too weak to support his body weight. This past weekend, we attended a friend's wedding. There was a fairly heavy young woman at our table. I found out later that she's a cousin of the bride. He was very polite, but eventually started rebuffing her with decreasingly gentle hints and told her that he was gay and that his husband was sitting right next to him. A bit later, some tables were cleared and dancing began, which led us to believe that we were off the hook. The woman who had been bothering us was dancing with another guy, so we sat at the edge of the improvised dance floor and watched. After a while, however, she disentangled from her dance partner and was dancing near us with a couple of female friends. Right as a song was ending, she leaned backward in an attempted flourish of sorts. As I mentioned earlier, his bones are not up to supporting a tilde 200 lb weight, suddenly dropping on him, and she ended up breaking both of his femurs and one of his ribs. It was a disaster. We had to call an ambulance. He needed surgery on his right leg. He had to stay in the hospital for 4 nights, and he's going to be stuck in bed for a good long while. We do have decent health insurance, but it's looking like we can expect to pay tilde $3,000 out of pocket for the health care he receives. Honestly, we don't have that kind of money lying around. Our friend who got married has been in touch and was extremely apologetic about the situation. He and his new wife were absolutely not at fault, and I'd like to drag him through the mud as little as possible. I am, however, wondering if it is possible to sue the cousin at fault for the medical bills we now owe. After an evening of aggressive flirting, I frankly don't believe that she came over to us and then happened to fall exactly in my husband's lap purely by accident, but don't have any proof that it was intentional. I'm certain that she didn't have any malicious intent and that she had no idea that she was going to hurt him so badly by plopping herself on him the way she did. Even if it was purely a drunken stumble, does she bear any liability for the injuries she caused? Or if neither of us have contacted her since the wedding. We'd never met beforehand, and I don't know quite how to casually ask a stranger for thousands of dollars. Based on her behavior at the wedding, the actions above, plus the fact that she peeked out as soon as it became apparent that she really hurt my husband, that she didn't get in touch again, I suspect that she's not going to be super willing to pitch in for medical explain. Do we have any kind of case against her? Is it worth hiring a lawyer, or is that just going to add to the pit of debt that this wedding has put us into? update. First off, please thank everyone for providing really helpful input. My husband could have pretty much just planned to pay the bills ourselves until we read through their comments. My husband got in touch with a personal injury lawyer shortly after I made the original post, and he said that she echoed a lot of the advice we saw on here. That term. Shout out to you/law gig for introducing me to the term eggshell plaintiff, which was apparently the phrase of the hour when I talked. He targeted, she said that he would almost certainly win a case against the drunk cousin and possibly even for quite an hour. Resentful looks like the cousin played along. She added, however, that recovery could be a real issue and the suit might not be worth pursuing if we didn't think the cousin would actually pay up. She said that he also could have a case under Minnesota's Dramshop law against the bride and groom, or more likely the bartending service they hired, but he'd likely get a much smaller settlement because of the comparative fault laws. I got the name of the bartending service, and they definitely have liquor liability covered. I learned from the groom that the cousin is a bit of a train wreck in terms of fiscal responsibility, and that she's quite unlikely to be willing or able to pay any kind of settlement. So for now, my husband's lawyer is helping him figure out how to bring a case against the buyer. As I mentioned, it's unlikely that we'd get the full settlement, especially if he settles out of court, which I think he'd like to do if possible, but that's completely fine because the numbers she was citing were crazy high once pain and suffering, etc., were brought into play. Even a quite small fraction, if we were able to recover it, would help out a lot. As an aside, the drunk cousin apparently found out that we were considering suing her because she found my husband on Facebook and sent him a rather incoherent message about how the whole situation wasn't her fault because she couldn't have known he had OI, and in fact was his fault for not telling her. I guess she thinks he should just wear a sign at all times that said, "I have brittle bones. Please do not sit on them." I thought he should reply, "Eggshell plaintiff bitch." But maturity won out at the end of the day, and he didn't respond at all. Otherwise, his fractures are healing well, which is a huge relief. And he's a lot more comfortable than he was the last time I posted. It's a little bit of a bummer that the cousin isn't going to be held accountable for her actions, but at least it's looking likely that we won't be on the hook for the bills. Thanks again for the help, Ellie. Presumably, final update. Now that things have settled down a little, I thought I'd provide an update to my previous post about the most unpleasant wedding I've ever attended. Long story short, we didn't end up suing anyone. The woman who was responsible was unlikely to be willing or able to pay for any real damages, and Minnesota apparently has fairly strict wage garnishment laws, which would prevent us from recouping even legal costs for the thing. We did also look into suing the company that provided bartending services for the wedding, but ultimately dropped that as well for two reasons. Firstly, there's a good chance that we'd lose the case and would then cap legal costs as well as medical expenses. Secondly, it seemed that even if we did win, someone who really wasn't to blame would likely be silent. There is good news, though. As someone suggested on the original thread, the couple did have wedding insurance that covered up to $5,000 in expenses for injuries to guests, but we should not require establishing faults. So we were actually able to get pretty much everything paid for with that without going through the hat. It definitely wasn't the kind of payout that a personal injury suit can bring, but we hadn't really been looking to profit from it in the whole situation anyway, so it turned out fine. Away. Other than the highly unpleasant individual who caused the whole situation, everyone involved has been really wonderful. My husband called the hospital's billing department, and they were very accommodating about deferring payment and reducing costs, but they had control over the intermission of any of the healthcare system in their area. Also, the lawyer didn't end up charging us for anything, despite the fact that she spent 3 hours meeting with my husband and presumably some extra billable time on top of that. The bride and groom have also been very helpful with the insurance and legal information and gracious about their wedding reception going south in such a spectacular. I do really wish that there had been some kind of consequences for the cousin beyond public shaming, but I'll just have to hope that every one of her Starbucks orders is slightly wrong for the rest of her life. Oops, I can't message me informing me I posted from the wrong account. Oops, I can't comment from the original account because this thread is locked, but if there's a bullet post or something, I can post there. I need more coffee. Edit 2. Man, if I knew all it took to get Reddit Gold was an unfluttered lawsuit of my husband breaking both his legs, I would have done this ages ago.